You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast. Available in the podcast section on iTunes and on YouTube.
Oh, hey, welcome in to The Route, our Husker football podcast edition. Ryan Swanigan, Brent Bonfleur.
Hey,
Devon Kleich also with us. We'll get to him in just a moment. But first, we're going to celebrate the Mike Riley era off to a phenomenal start yesterday. My goodness. What a great win. That was a great football game. And oh, no? What? What do you mean? What?
really?
29 straight season openers won by Nebraska, dating back to 1985.
Yeah.
And a memorable season opener for both teams.
You gotta stop, right?
Three-man rush. Mangum, all kinds of time. Steps into the throw, in the wind, down to the goal line, and caught! Touchdown, BYU! Mitch Matthews on the last play of the game.
That's just depressing.
Well, that was supposed to happen. Well, that's how the Mike Riley era gets underway. And with that, time to bring in Devon Kleich.
Wow, I feel good.
It's time now to bring in the Nebraska insider of all Nebraska insiders, the insider known as Devon Kleich.
So good. So good.
Oh, yeah. How good do you feel today, Devon?
I mean, I feel pretty good. Mentally, I'm probably not all there right now.
Well,
Still.
find me somebody who is after yesterday.
But, you know, I do appreciate that intro music. You know, that's something you
Oh,
can
yeah.
add to.
Very fitting.
I didn't
know.
like the last one, so I was like, you know what? Wait a minute. I had an original idea. Where did it go? I found it. It was like, oh, we'll use this
But I can
music.
groove to that. You know me.
Oh,
Back
yes.
on delay of game. You can groove to
Oh,
almost anything.
yes. Oh, of course. That's how we like to keep things on here, you know?
I like to be on the radio in the dark.
I do. But
That
I'm
too.
not in the dark right now. So.
Oh, I'm busting a move 24/7, guys.
It's so great that in that soundbite, there's like the perfect music behind it.
Oh, I know, too.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
just-
about that.
You know, the timing was impeccable.
Oh, of course. Anyways, Nebraska losing yesterday in
well,
in its home
worse when
opener.
you play that depressing music behind it.
Yeah, we're trying to get over this.
saying.
And get
That was
South
like
Alabama.
the death knell of the Nebraska football
Well,
season.
well, yeah, that's exactly kind of the
Do you
the
really
feeling.
think that the season is over after the first
I don't
game?
know, man. It feels like it's a long
Stop it.
hill to climb
Stop
up.
it.
Yeah.
Ohio State won a national championship.
After
so.
losing to Virginia Tech at home, yes, that is very true.
So looks
That is
like
very
we're
true.
headed for a
National
trophy.
championship.
Not saying that. I'm just saying the season's not over.
Yeah, well,
not
okay.
But, yeah,
Okay,
that
let's hope so.
Look, Tommy Armstrong's going to give a Tim Tebow, no team will play any harder than we will the rest of the season speech, and we're going to go on and we're gonna win
because
this thing.
Tommy Armstrong seems like that kind of guy.
Wow, that's just about as unlikely as either of those things.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Nebraska losing 33-28 after what looked like possibly, the next 7 minutes, 57 seconds, Nebraska would make another defensive stand. They kept punting the football away without Sam Foltz. I think only Brockmeyer punted twice.
Yeah, but he had good punts, too.
That was worth too
They
bad.
weren't bad.
He had like a 55-yard and a 49.
Not bad
I think.
for a backup punter.
Yeah, and Sam Foltz would have punted that thing about 70 yards, but
Still.
you can't.
Two punts for Brockmeyer, 81 yards, averaged 40 and a half. That's not bad.
Yeah, and the first one was a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
That was like 50 of them.
But it was a season opening game to forget and to remember all in one.
The sad thing is I've never seen Nebraska lose on opening day my entire life until
I don't remember the last time that they did. It had
You
to
got to be 30 years old.
I think it was 1985.
Yeah,
Is the
you have
last-
to be
Osborne
30
era, yeah.
years old to remember the last time Nebraska lost on opening.
Probably 35 just to give a buffer because, people who were,
yeah.
5 years old,
Yeah.
you don't remember much from when you were 5 years old
to
or
really
less.
remember watching it, you probably had to be
40 or over.
40 years old.
Or more.
Yeah.
So,
Incredible.
I know Tom Osborne probably remembers the last time that he lost the home opener. But yeah, Nebraska not able to get it done on the last play of the game. And, it's going to hurt and sting for quite some time. Devon, Brent, you guys were there. I was not, but I listened to the game in its entirety. I'll start with you, Devon. You were looking at me when you came home yesterday like, I just can't believe that just happened. Thoughts today on this Sunday, the day after Nebraska loses to BYU on a Hail Mary?
Well, if you start out quarter by quarter, that first quarter, by the looks of it, Nebraska was going to score some points. Tommy
good.
played really well. The offense was clicking. Great touchdown by Jordan Westerkamp to score that first one.
Oh, my gosh.
After Tommy laid a huge block to get him free so he could score that touchdown. But he laid 2 blocks. And that's the thing I like to see is Tommy go out there, risk himself to help this team win. And that's really something I didn't really see before. But the pass game started off really well. Then you get into that second quarter, and everything turned into a dumpster fire. It was awful. I think I saw a stat line. It was tweeted out. Tommy was 3 for 15 in the second quarter in passing. And that, I believe, in that second quarter, that's when BYU made their run, and I think they scored, 17 unanswered points in that second quarter. And
Unbelievable.
Nebraska had a chance to kick a field goal to bring it within 7 at the end of the second half.
And they missed.
And it had no chance.
Day to
by Drew
forget
Brown.
day to forget for Drew Brown.
And I know that he really struggled today, and he did not look like that in fall camp. He looked really, really good. He was kicking very well.
He choked.
He choked. And
Twice.
he did
Hardcore.
come out and say he wasn't making excuses for missing those field goals. He goes, I don't know what happened. Like, it was... And he said that after the second one, which happened towards the end of the game, he goes, after I saw Sam go down, and it was funny because he walked out there, and as I'm watching him, as soon as he saw Sam, he turns away like it was the worst thing he ever saw. And I don't know if that got in his head, and he said it might have. He said that he goes, after seeing Sam go down, he's one of my best friends. He goes, it was just terrible, and he was probably thinking too much, which tends to happen, especially in those late game situations. Because if you think about it, he hits both those field goals.
Nebraska wins.
Game's tied at the end. If they hit that Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
So they didn't even have the last second if they,
And, it seems like, I think it was Ryan that mentioned this to me, it seems like every time, within 5 times that Nebraska's lost with 1 second left on the clock.
Exactly.
It's
1 second continues to haunt Nebraska over and over and over again. It seems like every single season there's that 1 second issue that just pops up in one of Nebraska's games.
That's the thing. If he hits that second field goal, they don't get it at like the 40.
Yeah.
They get it at the 20 most likely because it'd be a touchback.
It would be with the win, yeah. Brown would be kicking with the win.
Most likely it's going to be a touchback, and that 1 second, but they got 20 extra yards they had to gain. So,
And I mean,
odds
I
are.
don't know. I'm not sure if, how he was feeling at that point before he before he attempted that second field goal. But if that was the case, if you didn't have as much confidence in Drew Brown to make that field goal, you might as well have gone for it and try to get the first down. It was 4th and 4.
Yeah.
You could attempt to go for it because they're going to be in the same spot either way.
Right.
And if you take a shot downfield or something, then they pick it off. Okay, it's an arm punt. They're down within the 10, whatever.
Yeah, right,
or
exactly.
it'll bring it back out to the 20. Or you get the first down, the game's over.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of options, and as a coach, I'm sure that's one of the toughest decisions to make because you don't want to blow it for your team. And after that game was over, I know how Northwestern felt, and when we beat them in that exact same end zone, and it was just one of the toughest things to see. And then you see all of the reactions on ESPN and all that stuff of all those guys just in utter chaos because BYU storming the field because they just hit a Hail Mary, and Mike Riley's like, I just lost my first
Mike
game here.
Riley and Bo Pelini's reactions to both Hail Marys were the same, only one of them was a Nebraska win and one of them was a Nebraska loss.
Yeah.
I found that kind of interesting and ironic at the same time. Some other notes about this Hail Mary, by the way, that I found earlier today here on this Sunday, September the 6th. In the Hail Marys that took place, the win and the loss, the Hail Marys happened in almost the exact same location as far as the ball being caught and the ball being thrown. The ball was thrown by a backup quarterback. Less than 5 seconds left. Same officiating crew, by the way, this time around. 3-man rush. That's the standard Hail Mary defense, obviously. That's almost given. Almost the same time taken for the backup quarterback to scramble around to give time for the receivers to get down the field. Difference of about a second and a half. Game time, 2:30 kickoff for both games. They both ended around the same time. The Hail Mary happened almost within roughly half an hour of the one from 2 years ago. It's in the 6 o'clock hour. Both backup quarterbacks wore jersey number 12, who completed the Hail Mary winning touchdowns.
Okay. Wow.
That's basically all we got for some of the similarities.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really weird. Not that any of those things really have any bearing on the games are separated by years, and it's different teams, different players. Everything's different.
Exactly.
But the fact that all of those things were similar,
Kind of freaky.
yeah, it's a
Kinda
little weird.
freaky.
It's kind of like, makes you think.
Something interesting to note. Obviously, Nebraska lost, and they really, you think about it, they kind of should have lost this game because of the fact that when you give up almost 400 yards of passing, you have 12 penalties for 90 yards, and you rush, at Nebraska, mind you, for 126 rushing yards only, and not one running back has 50 or more yards. Terrell Newby had 47. You almost deserve to lose. Especially, again, I go back to those penalties.
Yeah.
12 penalties.
90 yards, that's a free touchdown.
Yeah.
What they gave up over the course of the game. That's 7 points.
I'll put it simply, it's unacceptable.
Right.
But Mike Riley knows that, and he addressed that in his post-game press conference after the game. And there's some things to fix, and he knows that, and he's going to take care of that. But it still is just kind of mind-boggling to see those three specific things. It's like, and I don't remember who I said this to after the game on Saturday, but it's like there's like nothing changed. Like nothing changed. Pass defense is still a problem. Too many penalties. The only thing that changed was Nebraska threw for 319 yards in the air and only ran for 126 on the ground.
Yeah.
That's basically, it was like a game without Amir Abdullah. And it was, but in saying what I just said, it was as if Amir Abdullah was injured. Well, this time he wasn't there, and and Nebraska didn't try to run the football.
And I think that for Mike Riley, it's a whole different thing, especially when it comes to the running game for him, because at Oregon State, he had no one that could run the ball. On third and one, they would throw the ball. They could not run the ball at Oregon State. And he would even probably tell you that. Like, we had no one that could run the ball. And so he's not used to having this talent at the running back position to run the ball.
Right.
But you have to be able to mix up your pass plays with your run plays and utilize the run game to open up the pass game and use the pass game to open up the run game. But their passing, I thought, was relatively good. We had 100 passing yards in the first quarter. which tell me the last time Nebraska did that. It's been a long time, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But when you run the ball and don't have a Nebraska player over 50 rushing yards, that really hurts Nebraska because that's their game. And you allow a team that is actually a rushing team to throw for almost 400 yards. That pass defense was atrocious, and I think that was the most disappointing part of the game yesterday, more than Tommy, because I thought Tommy actually showed some progression that he's made within the last year. He could make his reads better. Sometimes it looked like he couldn't, but that was also because he was under some pressure. The offensive line is young. I didn't think they did terrible, the offensive line. They just are young and inexperienced. You have one guy. More playing time. One guy has 13 starts, and that's Alex Lewis. Everyone after that has like one or less.
And Ryan Reeves has a lot of playing time. He just doesn't have a lot of starts.
Yes.
Chongo Condolo has seen a lot of playing time last year. I think he maybe had one start as well. Dylan Utter, my guy.
0. No
starts, no experience.
Nick Gates, 0.
Exactly. So
and that's what it comes down to is 0 experience. But overall, I thought they gave Tommy, 3 seconds to get rid of that football. And that's what this offense is about, is getting that ball out quickly to your wide receivers. And for the most part, he did a pretty decent job of that. But he still missed some wide open wide receivers down the field. He would scramble out of the pocket and not get rid of the ball. He'd flick it, which is a terrible idea. I like the idea of getting rid of the ball, but you have to throw it out of bounds, not get an intentional grounding.
I had 2 of them yesterday, 2 intentional groundings.
And it comes down to cleaning up the little things. I think Nebraska's going to be fine. This is a wake-up call for Nebraska. It lets Mike Riley, Mark Banker, and all the coaches know what they need to do to beat these teams, because that's a game Nebraska could have won. It's a game that BYU could have won, and they just happened to get us after the time expired. And I really, really am not upset with Nebraska as a whole, but that defense coming out of fall camp was supposed to be top notch. And granted, you were putting in freshmen that have never played before. I think they said 7 freshmen played yesterday. The one that I was really disappointed in, and it comes down to that last play, was Aaron Williams. And the guy that caught the pass, and I think his last name is Matthews.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he came from the far side of the field down and came across to catch that football.
Mitch Matthews, by the way, had both receiving touchdowns for BYU yesterday.
And Aaron Williams was on coverage on him. And he actually did not cover that wide receiver. After he got past him, he kind of laid off. Didn't go up and try to attempt anything, which really disappoints me. And then it falls on Nate Gary because he was behind him covering everyone else. And this guy that came underneath, he had to try and jump over him to knock it down.
And I think Josh Kalu came in there as well with Nate Gary, so they had to pick him up. And so it's just, and I know Nebraska's practice, I've watched them practice that. They know what they have to do. You never play from behind that wide receiver because, honestly, that play could have gone either way. If they would have called that play not a touchdown, it probably would have stood as not a touchdown.
Right.
Because how could you really tell by the angles of the instant replay if that really crossed the line or not? You couldn't see.
Oh, and it looked like the Nebraska player drugged the receiver over.
Yeah, Nate Gary came down and the momentum kind of...
Yeah.
It wasn't... He didn't really drag him into the end zone.
Well, just the way they were falling.
It just kind of felt... They hit the ground and kind of rolled a little bit, unfortunately, in that direction.
And I understand Nate Gary's attempt at it because he was behind the play. He's trying to come over the top and swat it down. But if there was that extra push from behind, he would never have made it in the end zone. If someone would have hit that guy from behind, he wouldn't have been a touchdown.
Right.
But because of the situation they got put in with Aaron Williams not really on the coverage like he should have been and kind of laying off, comes back to bite you.
The thing is, I mean, obviously, you're in the moment. You got your assignment. You got to also react to what you're seeing. It's hard to know if this guy is going to catch it or not. But, if you think he's going to catch it, just hit him. Just knock him on his butt and get a 15-yard penalty, and if they do it again, at least you have another shot to defend it. If you think he is going to catch it, just wipe him out, Just take him out.
Especially when those receivers are quite a bit taller than our corners.
Right.
Like, quite a bit. Like, I think they were all 6'3" and above.
Yeah, they were big guys.
And they could just go up and grab that football. Yeah, just take a shot at them, you know?
Well, I mean, it's such a low percentage play that the odds of them doing it twice in a row is what, even with 15 more yards, it's still it's
and
like
if you watch throughout the game, it looked like BYU had no confidence in their field goal kicker because they went for it on 4th down so many times.
Right.
And so if they move the ball up 15 yards, he might
it's not
not
like
make
he's
that.
going to kick a field goal.
Yeah, they're probably going to go for
try
it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
now, one thing, going back to the offense we were talking about, lack of running game, one difference in this game was the screen passes, which were very successful for the most part. There were a couple times where they weren't, where they fell incomplete. But a few I saw, I probably saw 3 real good ones that went for like 15-plus yards apiece. So, you factor that in, and yes, it technically counts as a pass, but, it's not like they were all long passes down the field to get those 300 whatever yards and, only 126 on the ground. Realistically, with all the short little passes and stuff, it's kind of like a run anyway, a screen pass. It's just, it's like a delayed handoff almost. So,
and
it's a little more balanced than what you would gather just by looking at the numbers.
And kind of going back to it, too, the Drew Brown, the second kick that he missed that could have put us up by 4. I was thinking about this. When they ran the play before on 3rd and 3, they ran a jet sweep to Jamal, and it got stuffed behind the line.
Ran to the short side of the field.
Yeah.
The problem I had with that is it's a lot tougher for a kicker to kick on the hash than it is towards the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And granted, you also had Tyson Brockmeyer holding, and it's not Sam Foltz.
Right.
Which is a little bit different, and I think Tyson just doesn't get enough experience holding the ball. It's a little bit tougher for him. But if they would have ran something to the left side of the field, get it more centered, it would have been better off for Drew.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
I thought they did that for him. I thought maybe I'm like, why would they do that? But I guess, maybe he kicks better from that hash. Maybe he asked for it that way.
Yeah, and I thought they would go to the middle to help out Drew, but
yeah, you would think you just want it right down the middle.
But it didn't help, and
yeah, he missed it wide left.
He shanked
he's
it.
Kicking left, but he missed it even, real wide.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow.
Interesting.
Just
also
a bad kick.
Just also something interesting to note, too, that catch that Brandon Riley had down the middle of the field, that game-saving tackle, that touchdown-saving tackle that was made. How huge does that look now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That BYU got that. Otherwise,
that's
Brandon Riley's scoring.
That final pass is the straw that broke the camel's back. It all adds up during the game. Each one of those penalties, hey, you take out one of those 15-yard penalties, okay, well, maybe you pick up a first down, and, you even if you go 3 and out after that, you've wiped a little time off the clock. That wouldn't be there at the end for them to even have that drive. Or if you kick the field goal, they get it on the 20. They don't have the extra time, or they have more yards to get. There's so many things that you can't ever, it ultimately, it's what adds up over the course of the game, and then it boils over, and that's what happens.
Looking forward now, Nebraska takes on South Alabama this Saturday
at
7 o'clock. Devin, we'll start with you. Thoughts on what Nebraska needs to do to pick up a win this weekend?
Well, first of all, I said it last week when we were doing this, that you can't overlook Alabama to Miami because you just lost to BYU. And how does South Alabama think when, wow, BYU just won? Why the heck can't we?
Yeah,
we're not as talented probably as a team. We don't recruit as well.
Right.
But how come we can't go in there and beat Nebraska?
They're down in the Southeast. I know they don't get the 5-star kids that Alabama and Florida get, but they get their teammates and their backups. So.
But I feel that Nebraska needs to find a balance between the run-pass game and use the run game efficiently to help open that pass game, because I expected, and the way Mike kind of talked about it, was they were going to open up that pass game and take shots down the field. And they didn't really do that all that much. It was more little bubble screens, little screen passes, which honestly, screen passes didn't work all that much because Tommy was getting pressured and he was overthrowing the running back. But when it did connect, it did work. You know, he got a good chunk of yards. I think you need to find out who's going to be the running back, because the mix of McHale and Newby and Amani Cross,
Pick a guy.
did not really work for Nebraska.
Yeah.
You need Amani to be that 3rd and 1, bowl you over back.
Yep.
You know, because he's not really good for more than a couple big runs a game.
Right.
And that's just, he's a bigger guy. People are going to go after him, but he can get you that first down. And on a jet sweep on 3rd and 3, that's not really going to help you.
Yeah.
Especially to the short side of the field. People are going to be playing that quite a bit. And I think that you need to make, I think McHale needs to start. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think McHale needs to be the starter. McHale looked really good, I thought, when he got in there. Amani, definitely your 3rd down back. Wide receivers played well. Westerkamp had over 100.
Wow.
Had over 100 receiving yards.
107.
And so
he's a stud.
And so are all those other wide receivers. Alonzo, I thought, played
he
really
did
well.
great, too.
On the jet sweeps,
Yeah.
he had 2 really good runs.
Yep.
Like, overall, the wide receiver position was the best position yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the defense, you know, they need to... I don't know if it was this last week they focused too much on the run game and expecting them to run,
Mm-hmm.
and then, wow, they're surprised by this passing offense
Right.
of BYU.
Huge receivers.
I think that they need to be able to know what South Alabama is going to be running and be able to focus on every aspect of their offense and not just, I don't know if South Alabama's a running team or if they're a passing team.
You're right.
But Nebraska's run defense, I thought, looked pretty good.
Yeah,
The pass
it was.
defense was complete garbage.
Yeah.
And it could be to the fact where, you know, this game might spark something in Nebraska to, I don't know, to really find out what they're made of, especially when they go down to Miami. That if they think that Kaya's not going to throw all over them, he is. Granted, they don't have the receivers that they had last year.
Right.
They'll still find a way.
But they'll find a
Good
way,
quarterbacks
especially if
use
they
what they've
can
got.
expose the weaknesses of that defense. And that secondary is a pretty strong core with all those guys that are back there, Byerson Cockrell, Nate Gary, Daniel Davey. Hopefully Jonathan Rose is back next
Josh
week.
Kalu's good too.
Josh Kalu.
Leading tackler, by the way.
Those guys are a solid core, and they just need to build some chemistry. Granted, you threw in a couple freshmen here and there to kind of help out. Some guys haven't really played with this group yet in a game situation until yesterday. If they can find a way to get it together, they will be okay. This defense will be really good.
Brent, your thoughts?
I agree with Devin on pretty much everything. One thing though was Malik Collins. Where'd you go?
He was in. He had one great play. One
He
sack.
had several great plays, but for the most part, like people are hyping him up to be like a every down dominant force, someone who's gonna constantly be, taking either if you put one guy on him, he should be getting at the quarterback almost every play. If you put 2 on him, he should be opening stuff up. And there were plays when he did that. There was one play when Greg McMullen got a big sack that Collins just took the middle of that BYU offensive line and just pushed them back right into the quarterback and opened up for McMullen to get the quarterback. But like that defensive line was so hyped, and I think they stopped the run. They stopped the run really well, but when you get that much praise and that many people talking about you and talking you up, I was underwhelmed by the defensive line.
Yeah, definitely, because I think, with Taysom Hill, he can scramble out of the pocket, and that was one of the issues.
Right.
When they'd get pressure on him, he would find some way to get out of the pocket, and he could scramble away, but Nebraska's defensive line did get pressure on him.
Oh, yeah,
but if they think they're not going to be playing mobile quarterbacks in the Big Ten, they're mistaken.
Right.
Because there's going to be guys that can take off and run like that. You got to be able to contain that guy in the pocket.
Right, exactly.
And you got to use your linebacker situation, which isn't really that great, but I didn't think they were terrible.
I thought Josh Banderas had a good game.
Most of the time, they were playing 2 linebackers because they were in nickel defense.
Right.
Because they really don't have that third linebacker until Michael Rose is back. And Diedrich really impressed me this week. But the defensive line, there was a lot of rotation. There was the first series, I think 2 plays in, they switched the entire defensive line out for the backups.
Wow.
They went to, I think it was Dezuris, Frida Makamulundun, Kevin Maurice, and Kevin Williams.
Yep.
That was the backup defense line, and it was a mass rotation every time. Mm-hmm. And
that backup D-line did pretty good.
yes, Freedom was one guy that I didn't think was going to get that much playing time this year, but he really impressed me.
Yeah.
Like, he can make some moves, and granted, he was a defensive lineman in high school. He played DN and tight end, and he started here at Nebraska at tight end, but with the talent that we had there, which I don't know about now, with injuries and suspensions, but Nebraska, I think they're going to be okay. It's just you got to build a chemistry. You got to really connect.
It's the first game.
Yes.
Look at, what do you think TCU fans are talking about right now? Oh, we didn't put up 50 points in our first game. We barely beat this team. Granted, they're okay, but they're nowhere near. It's the number 2 team in the nation. A team most people think is gonna play in the national championship and be undefeated by the time they get there.
Oh yeah.
And there's all kinds. Stanford lost their first game
To Northwestern.
Exactly. There's all Arizona State got whipped by Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So it's not like Nebraska's the only team. And, even Alabama playing Wisconsin, granted, Wisconsin is a good team and they're tough, but even Alabama didn't, bury them. It's not like
Michigan State almost lost.
Yeah,
Western
Michigan State. That's
they only beat them by
one.
10, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many games where top teams did not come out. Typically, the first week, you think of scores like 70-10.
Yeah.
Is what you think of. And that was not the case anywhere, except for Ole Miss and whoever they played. That was like a basketball
Tennessee
score.
Martin.
Yeah, they put up 76 on them or something like that. Other than that, it's like, just relax. It's the first week. It's a non-conference game. It has no bearing on getting to the Big Ten championship. Which, if you get there, that loss doesn't matter anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
So just chill. They will be fine.
Follow Mike Riley's calm demeanor.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't swear at the refs at the end and spit on a baby in the stands on his way out doesn't mean that he's not, like Devin said, it's not like they're not thinking, okay, we got to work on this. They're just not going to freak out about it, just like the fans should relax. It will be okay. They will come out. They will take care of business against South Alabama, and then we'll see against Miami.
And it's pretty obvious, isn't it? By the looks of it, Nebraska, they didn't give the kind of game that fans were looking for, but you shouldn't expect that Mike Riley come out, especially against the best team we played in probably the last 30 years on opening day.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't expect him to just thrash those teams, especially in his first game. This game was a get used to the offense, see if this offense fits the system, fits these players, see if this defense, if they need to make adjustments somehow on the defensive side of the ball. And right now, I think that you look at Nebraska and say they might be a year out. They might be.
Yeah.
This team is good enough to win the rest of their games, but you also play a couple other good teams that are very talented as well. Miami, Miami is not as good, I don't think, as last year, but you play at home. That's an advantage.
Right.
You play Michigan State at home, but they're really good.
Right.
You play Wisconsin at home, but they're still really good. You play Minnesota on the road, and their defense is really good.
Right.
But their offense is not. You got to play these teams. You got to beat these teams. If you beat them by 10 points, you beat them by 50 points. I don't care.
Right.
It's still a win.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's all that matters.
You win on a Hail Mary, it's still a win for you. It's still a loss for Nebraska.
Right.
So I think that it comes down to just making adjustments this week, going out, putting points on South Alabama, and not letting them push around the Nebraska defense like BYU did this week.
Yeah.
You can hear Nebraska and South Alabama this week on the multiple media outlets, including the University of Nebraska-Lincoln student radio station, 90.3 KRNU. Brent Bonfuller and the KRNU sports staff will have the Husker Countdown pregame show this Saturday evening live from Memorial Stadium beginning at 5:50, of course, on KRNU and krnu.unl.edu. Devin, pleasure as always, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thanks for joining us. Brent, as always, Fun stuff. Have fun this weekend. Hopefully it won't be as hot.
This week? Oh, this coming weekend? Yeah.
For the football game.
Oh man, we were all well. I made it a point to wear an undershirt so I wouldn't sweat through my other shirt. But there, guys, we were just drenched. It was awful.
Yeah,
walking over there.
You'll be all right. You're in an air-conditioned press box now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's nice.
That's gonna do it for this edition of the Husker podcast, Husker Sports Podcast, I guess you could say, here on The Route. We will talk to you once again next week and have a recap of Nebraska and South Alabama. Alabama.